Okay, so we're here with Marita Nizam, and Marita is an author of a children's book. Let me get this: Little Grumpy-Poos and what else?
Little Rabbit
Little Rabbit.
Little Rabbit and the Grumpy
Little
Poos.
Rabbit and Grumpy-Poos. I love the accent. You're definitely from Germany, aren't you?
Yes, yes, I am.
Okay, technically, I am too. I guess you could say I was
Oh,
born there and I've lived there twice.
oh,
Um,
are you? Oh,
yes, yes.
that's
It's a
interesting.
through the military. My dad was in the military in Germany twice. So I was born there. Uh,
Oh, okay.
we were in where was it? Um, it was Rhein Main Air Force Base.
That's pretty close where I am. I'm
Oh,
I'm like I'm like an hour away from Düsseldorf. So yeah,
wow. I've been to Dusseldorf too.
not too
Definitely.
far, not too
Yeah,
far.
that's wonderful. So we're talking today a little bit about helping kids have a healthy sense of self and standing up to kind of the negative aspects sometimes we uh, have in our society. So I want to know, let's go backwards first, a little bit about your
Okay.
life and kind of take us from there all the way up to where you are now.
Okay, that's a long time. Yeah, like I said, like you already found out, I was born in a small town in Germany. I grew up there. And then in 1989, I came to Canada. I'm in Toronto, just to work as a nanny for a year, met my ex-husband, got stuck over here. It's a beautiful country, beautiful
Yes.
people. And yeah, ended up writing this book later in life, I guess, because it's based on my own life experience, and it is based on my experience raising my own two children.
Interesting. So what motivated you to start doing like children's books and particularly this topic, which I think actually is really relevant to the time we're in currently. So let's take it back then. Yeah.
I think so, yeah. Like I said, it's from my own experience because unfortunately, my children grew up around a negative person.
Mm.
And at the time, I didn't quite understand the dynamics that were going on. And to be honest, I didn't have the life skills that I would have needed to, or the skills that I would have needed to stand up in a situation. So unfortunately, I had to witness the negative effects it had on my children. And I also realized how vulnerable they really are, especially at a young age, and how damaging those negative encounters can be.
So can you talk a little bit about how that affected your children negatively, as much as you're comfortable talking about?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I've asked my children. They gave the okay for me to talk about this because they also want to protect children from this, right?
Mhm.
With my children, I saw a whole range from anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, eating
Mm.
disorders, cutting. So I think that shows you when kids are not giving that safe space to develop that healthy sense of self and to express themselves, be themselves, it has very damaging effects.
Most definitely. So how did you start the journey for your kids to get better and to start having a better sense of self?
Um, that is a good question. I think for my kids, unfortunately, it ended up being a little bit more of kind of like damage control, right?
Mm.
Of course, I think what I did well as a parent um, during that time, like I said, I didn't understand all the dynamics, but what I did well as a parent, I think, is listening to them and let them express themselves while they were going through it. But I have to say, my children actually did an amazing job on their own. My daughter is very spiritual. Um, she used that to, she did a lot of inner work. And my son also knows that he still has some work to do, and they both willing to do that, you know.
I mean, that's amazing that they
Yeah.
did things to help themselves and growing up in a difficult situation for that. So how is that manifested though? Do you still see some of that damage in them and it's current I mean, I imagine, are they adults now or are they?
Yeah, my daughter, oh my God, yeah, they grow up fast, don't they? My daughter is 26 and my son is 25.
Yeah.
So, well, I learned from my daughter, and that is maybe a lesson that I think is important for parents to keep in mind. She got to the age like early 20s, 23, and I, as a parent, was slowly putting the pressure. Okay, it's time to go out there. It's time to find a job, right?
Yeah.
So my daughter actually said to me, like, how do you expect me to find a job, to be productive in society when my inner world is totally out of whack?
Hmm.
Like I'm frankly scared to be around people, right? So maybe
Yeah.
for parents, that is a good lesson to keep in mind. Like, give them the time to look after their inner world, and then once they fix that, or hopefully they hopefully they grow up with a healthy inner world,
Yeah.
then they can go out and tackle the external achievements.
So two things
Yeah.
definitely that bring up a whole bunch of stuff. So,
Okay.
yeah, that's why I'm like, oh, okay, there's a lot going on here. So,
Yeah, there is.
one, do you think that, like say 20 somethings today have a better understanding of so-called inner world than people maybe who grew up during, I'm in my 40s, maybe people were in their 50s, 60s. I never heard children say that or adult children say that in their 20s before. Like, I need to work on my inner world, you know?
Yeah. Well, like I said, my daughter is very spiritual. She's always been connected.
Yeah.
Um, Personally, I think that every generation is better than the previous ones, right? Like
Yeah.
when I sometimes I sit out in my deck in my neighborhood, and I hear the young kids, my neighbors, speak, and I'm like, oh my God, they're so, advanced.
Yeah.
But I think as a society, we're going the wrong way.
Hmm.
For example, we're starting to put the pressure on children a lot earlier, like in kindergarten already, right? We're worried about, oh, can they read, can they write, instead of
Yes.
just giving them that safe space where they can develop and explore and play, and I think putting that pressure on is backfiring on us, because statistically anxiety is going up
Yeah.
in teenagers especially, and in kids that are starting university, they're feeling the pressure.
You know, it's interesting you say that. So my daughter's 10 and
Okay.
she's awesome, but she's very anxious when it comes to certain schoolwork.
Yeah.
And I think like in America, there's a huge emphasis on STEM or the science, technology, and all the engineering, but a very large emphasis on math. And anybody
Yeah.
who's listening, if you're parents, you have kids, this is great to weigh in, but
Yeah.
reading and math are very big things for school. And they want the kids to learn to read early. Totally get that, all that. And the math seems to be like a huge amount of, a lot of kids have low confidence with math. And then you're forcing them to do this almost like algebraic math in like second and third grade and stuff like that. And I see the anxiety among my daughter and some of her friends of all this pressure, you know?
Yes, I think it's dangerous, and I want to take it even a step further and say, I mean, what's the purpose of education? We want to prepare our children to go out there and be self-sufficient,
Right.
to deal with hopefully any situation that they have to deal with, right? And I think there's a hole, and the voices are getting louder, to include those other life skills, the life skills that help children deal with their inner world. For example, for your daughter, maybe if they had a meditation class
Right.
at school, right? That might help her to deal with anxiety, like help them to deal with stress. Or in my book, I tackle the subject of relational intelligence.
Yes.
Let's not overlook that. Like, relationships are a huge factor in our lives. I mean, you know it, I know it, right? Your listeners know it.
Yeah.
The people we choose to be around, how we navigate especially challenging relationships, has a huge effect on us. Let's make it part of main education. I mean,
agree.
we don't have to forget about the sciences, sure, include them, right?
Yeah.
But for example, for me in school, physics and chemistry was a waste of time for me. Like, I'm not a science person, right? So let's not forget about, like you said, the math but let's maybe start including and putting more focus on those other life skills that help us to deal with, to balance our inner worlds.
You know, it's so funny. I've had this conversation many times with other parents, and I love talking to international parents too, because I like to see like how it is in Europe, you know, different, the Far East, different places versus here. And at least I know, I've lived all over the United States, lived a lot of the world because I grew up in a military family. And at least here, I feel like there's just so much emphasis on the hard sciences, math, and all that stuff. When I'm always like, we need to teach kids like financial responsibility in school. So we depend on parents to do that. But what if the parents are not good at it? A lot of parents aren't good at that. They don't know it. So who are they learning it from? I was talking yesterday, why aren't we teaching kids interpersonal relationship skills in school? Okay, so then you're saying it's the parents' job to teach you how to be an effective communicator and have good behavior. What if a lot of parents aren't taught that either growing up? So how are they supposed to effectively do that? So then we have to rely on the school. And if the school is not offering, then it becomes purely about learning these very difficult experiences, making a huge amount of mistakes. And there's value in mistakes, but like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And I think you're right. I mean, unfortunately, we can't ignore the fact that sometimes it is the parents who are damaging the children. You know, because we haven't mastered maybe the skills we need, we're projecting onto them. So by teaching them a healthy sense of self-worth, I feel can protect them from that. I mean, there's always going to be an impact, right? The way I look at it, let's say you're driving and you're getting into a car accident, right? Somebody is hitting you from behind. If you see the accident coming, at least you can prepare yourself for the impact. There's still going to be an effect and an impact. And that's kind of what I want to do with my book. I want to tell kids, you know what, it's going to happen. We know it for sure. I mean, your daughter has encountered negative people in her life. You have.
Of course.
I mean, every person I've talked to about the book has a story, right? So I think my approach is, let's prepare children for those negative encounters so they know how to handle them. And hopefully that will lessen the impact, you know?
So besides, like you had mentioned, meditation, things like that, what are some things that you talk about in your book that are some easy strategies, or maybe not easy, but what are some practical strategies that parents can do to prepare their kids to have a better, healthy sense of self?
Yeah, I think the main message in my book, and I think I always almost made it as a mantra in my book, because I think for kids, it almost should be that, is the message, I'm good enough. Because I think what that does is separating our worth from our external achievements. Because if those are tied together, like if we think we're only worthwhile, valuable human beings if we achieve, you know, like for example, in your daughter's case, if she brings home good marks in math and she succeeds at school, that's very dangerous, because that creates a lot of pressure. Because now let's say if your daughter if that's connected, now if your daughter fails in math, she's failing as a human being. So I think telling kids and showing them the message over and over again, no, you're good enough the way you came into this world, like your inner self, your soul is good enough. Of course, it's fun to achieve, right? And it should be fun and exciting, but let's not tie it in with our self-worth. That puts on a lot of pressure on our children.
I mean, this is a larger conversation, true. I think about a lot of things in life. But like, I have a good example of this. So my daughter, she has very low confidence in math. So she doesn't do well. She just doesn't, in her brain, it doesn't make sense to her. I relate to that. Math didn't make sense to me either growing up a lot. And a lot of people have that same feeling.
Yeah, they do.
Just how you're wired. Maybe, you know, some people, like my daughter's super artistic. Like she could paint you an amazing mural on a wall. And she comes home and like amazing, like crazy. Like, it's like, how do you know how to do this? I didn't teach you. Nobody taught you. It's just in her. And I said, listen, even if you didn't do well on this test, I want you to do better. However, there are a lot of great things about you. you're amazing, and all these things. Don't make this like, because I see it destroying her confidence sometimes.
Yeah.
And I don't want that for her, you know. So I have to pivot and be like you said, you're good enough. There's so many things that make you amazing. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And they don't have to, like you said, they don't have to be amazing at everything, right?
I mean, who
And,
is?
yeah, I know. And that's her path. You can already see it, right? Her path
Yeah.
is going to be maybe an artist, being expressive, being
Right.
creative. So let's not focus. Let's face it, she's not going to use math in her life.
No.
She's going to go to
No.
use just like I do. I use basic math to whatever, pay my bills
Right.
and figure out how much paint I have to buy to paint my
You
wall.
use your phone. You go, look at the calculator I have on
Yeah,
my phone.
exactly, right?
Oh
Let's
man.
face it, your daughter's path, and let's support that, right?
Yes.
That is her path. Let's get her excited about that. You know, yeah, sure, she have to pass math, whatever, but is
Yeah.
it going to affect her life in the long run? I don't think so. I mean, the best you can do for her is, you know, keep that excitement about art and the things she
Yeah.
enjoys and the things that bring her joy.
So you mentioned about like the good enough. Where did that start for you? Like that phrase, you know, I am good enough.
That kind of came from, I asked my children, what is the biggest challenge they have from the way they were growing up? And they both said it was the feeling that they were not good enough. That whatever they did, like it wasn't going to, was not good enough. And that for them got tied very much. I mean, with my daughter, it can get to the extreme. I mean, if they grow up in a very unhealthy environment, that they don't even feel they deserve to be here. Like, I'm not even good enough to be here. I'm not. I mean, that makes me emotional just talking about it.
Yeah.
You know, so they both said that's the biggest thing they had to struggle with, and that's the biggest negative effect, both of them. So from that kind of I wanted to make that the focus of the book, and just tell your children over and over again and show them, right? Like show your daughter, you know what? Yeah, let's work on math, sure. But
Yeah.
it's not that important. It has nothing to do with you as a human being and how valuable you are and how much. And I think Dr. Shivali says in her book, Conscious Parenting. I love that book. I think every
I never
parent,
heard of that book.
Yeah, it's called Conscious Parenting. I think it should be mandatory reading. I think before anybody leaves the hospital with a baby, they should be quizzed on that book.
Conscious Parenting. Love it.
She says in her book that we very often praise our children for external achievements. And then she says, let's not do that. And that stumped me for a bit. I'm like, okay, so how should we praise our children, right? We should tell them, like, I'm just happy to be around you, right? Like Maya Angelou said, when your child enters the room, your eyes should light up. You know, don't praise their external achievements so much.
Yeah.
Just say, I love how you are. I love being with you. You know, it makes me so happy to just be around you, like with your daughter, like, okay, that's an external achievement as well, but like you're a great artist, you know, like make them feel just, we love being around them for the human beings that they are, you know, beings, not doings, you know.
Beings, not doings, which is hard because so much of society is built around the doing. You meet somebody, what do you do for a living?
Yes.
Like that's the only thing that matters. But I get it because people are socialized into that question. And then people assign self-worth based off of the job that they do or career, and then too, how much money they make on that, you know?
Yes, so much. And I think, we put a lot of emphasis and I mean, you see it with your daughter now, to get them through the whole socializing in our society. It is very hard because we kind of get pressed into a mold, right? And I've
Yes.
seen it. I mean, I've worked as a nanny. I worked as a kindergarten teacher. I've seen a lot of kids growing up, and I feel especially those children, for like your daughter, the artistic ones, the ones that question things, the very sensitive ones.
Yep.
Oh, does she do that?
I mean, this is like my daughter to a T. I'm like, oh my gosh,
Yeah, no,
this
but
is her.
yeah, but those are the ones that get hurt in our society, right?
Yes. Yes.
And because they get pressed into a mold. And I think as parents, I'm going to mess up the quote, but Alanis Morissette has a song, a recent song, and the line in it says, "My job is it to keep the light in your eyes alive."
Hmm.
And I thought that was beautiful. To me, that
Interesting.
sums it up, like if you, in my opinion, if you can get your child through parenthood, through childhood, through, let's say university age, and they still have that, look at them when they're 3 or 4.
Yeah,
They have that excitement, that
that's true.
sparkle, right? That optimism, that enthusiasm. That's what I love about them. If you
Mm.
like focus on maintaining that, if they can come out at the other end, and you see how hard it is with your daughter. She's feeling the
Yeah.
pressure, right? But if
Yeah.
they can come out at the other end and they still have that intact, that enthusiasm, that joy, they're going to have a happy life, I think,
I
a
love that.
purposeful life,
I mean, you
right?
literally described my daughter to a T. I'm
See,
like, man, she's always questioning stuff all the
yeah.
time.
And
She's so
isn't that
sensitive.
great? It's
Yes,
amazing. I
it
mean, for
is
you
good.
as a parent, it's not, it makes you think stuff, right?
Yes, yes. But it's kind of like, like I always say, I'm like, man, I don't want to kill her spirit with all these things. I
Is
want her to have that. She like eats life. And I
That's
want her to
exactly
continue to
it.
have that,
Yes,
that passion about being alive. But often
that's
parents and the school system kill that in children, and that wonder and awe dissipates.
yes. And I think what I being out here and talking about it, that's what I'm trying to do, maybe to shift the focus a bit, away from that those external achievements. I mean, you have to have a certain trust, and as parents, that's not easy. You have to have a certain trust that if they follow their path, if they are balanced and have a healthy sense of inner self, that the external stuff will fall into place.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes not easy, right? I mean, I'm a parent. You are at these whatever weddings where everybody compares notes and says, my kid is a lawyer, my kid is a doctor.
Yeah.
Um, and what are you going to say? My daughter's working on her inner self. They're going to look at you like, what, are you crazy? So I think as parents, you have to have that trust, that if they stay and they keep that enthusiasm, they're going to have a good life.
Did you ever worry about like what your children would do for work? And was that a thing that you worried about a lot? Or did you try to be like, just focus on your inner self and then I'll support you in whatever you want to become, whatever you want to do as a profession?
Yeah, that's a good question. Listen, first of all, I think that's a thing I hadn't figured out for myself. I never
Mm.
challenged myself in the kind of business world. I was a stay-at-home mom. I picked a job like kindergarten teacher that I enjoyed, but wasn't really a challenge, maybe to really challenge myself and go for it, right? So I would say that was an area I wasn't good at advising my children in. And I would tell parents, you know what, if you tell your children that, if there's an area in life that you're not that good in, like tell them, sorry, like I'd rather stay out of this one.
Yeah. Yeah.
I haven't mastered that myself. I try to be optimistic about it and support them, but I don't think I always succeeded at that,
Yeah.
because there's always the work. There is the money worry. It's
Sure.
real and it's realistic. And listen, I'm from Germany, right? Yeah, you've lived there,
I
right?
have.
The
Yeah.
land of the effective people,
I mean,
they
punctual people, they're on to, get things
yeah.
done.
Exactly. That's the country I come from, right? So to tell them, you know what, oh, I'm going to chill for a bit. I'm going to take a break. I'm
Yeah.
figuring out my inner world is not going to I don't know, maybe not going to be appreciated that much. So no, I'd say with my kids, I probably didn't have that faith yet. Even now,
Yeah.
I have to admit, I'm probably not 100% there, right? I still worry
Yeah.
about them. I still worry about, but I think they will figure it out, let them
Yeah.
figure it out.
I like that you're very honest about it in the sense you're like, well,
Yeah.
I'm not great at this myself.
Yeah. I
You know,
won't.
the vulnerability. I think sometimes parents feel like they have to be everything to their children. They have to know all these things. They have to be able to ingest all the knowledge that it means to
Yeah.
be human
Yeah.
and then provide that when you
Yeah.
yourself have a lot of flaws that,
Oh,
you know,
and don't your children bring them out?
yeah, yes, children challenge you big time. It's like, man, I don't want to be this type of person. Why you
I
make me
know.
act like this?
I know, especially the ones like your daughter that they
Yes.
are going to question you, right? You can't
Oh,
just say because I said so.
oh
They're going
no.
to question your intentions, and they're going to question your like, where are you coming from with this, right?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
I think as parents, honesty is and I always felt I think that's why I chose the job to be a kindergarten teacher.
Mm.
I always felt working with kids makes you work on yourself,
Mm.
because I
Yes.
feel whenever you have a reoccurring problem with your children that you just can't figure out, look at yourself.
Yeah.
There's something off. Like either you're projecting, there's a belief, you have certain expectations. So I think as parents, yeah, we have to be very honest about where we are coming from. Again,
Yeah.
Conscious Parenting is a great book. She talks about that in the book. I would highly recommend it.
I think that's so important to be honest about your flaws as a
Yeah.
parent. Like for me, I think we're sharing. I think it's important to share, be honest. Like I'm not a very good play parent. Like some
Yeah.
parents, I know they like to get down on the ground and they like to play
Yeah.
all the silly games. That's
You
not
don't like
me.
it. Yeah.
Like I never like that. Like
Yeah.
I still don't like it. I'm just being honest. Like I don't like it. And if we're, my wife's not the same. She's the same way. It's kind of like, oh no.
Oh,
But
your
I
poor
like
child.
I know. I'm like, no, this is not good. But I like try. I'll try. But I tell him like this is just like it feels so unnatural for me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And how good would it be to tell your daughter, sorry, it's not you. I love hanging out with you.
Yeah.
But for some reason it's just not my thing. Can we do something else,
Yeah. And I'll try to do things, but just like my time span is very limited on how long I could. It's just true. It's like
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to play Barbies and stuff.
Yeah. I know.
But some parents I know, they
Yeah.
love that stuff. They're
Yeah.
like little kids themselves. They like can do it for hours and hours. And said, man, but see, then you get the comparison game. I'm like, wait a minute. Why am I not into that?
Yeah.
And they are. Well, there's
Yeah.
things that I'm really good with my daughter at that they're not. Also, it's just
Yeah.
different people,
Yeah, exactly. And there's nothing wrong with that, I don't think.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And so I think it's, as a parent, you're teaching your kid to have a better sense of self, but it's like, what's the better sense of yourself as a parent? How do you develop that? Because you're imprinting on your child all the time.
Yeah.
There's almost no greater power control relationship than a parent and a child on that. That the level of influence is so critically high from the parent to the child. It's often a wonder that parenting is often just kind of a free-for-all in many ways. There's
Yeah. And that's exactly, I mean, Dr. Shafali's book talks about that, that a lot of parents abuse the power. And a lot of parents, kind of try to project on your children and try to live vicariously through their children.
Yeah.
And that's a dangerous dynamic, right? And also
Yes.
she questions the dynamic of kind of demanding obedience, and not being willing to say sometimes, you know what, I don't know what I'm doing in this area, right?
Right.
I mean, I still remember this vividly. My mother was, we were having a discussion. I was maybe like 12, 13. And at the end of it, she said to me, you are right. She admitted it.
Yeah.
Right? she just said, you are right. I get that. And I still remember that to this day. That was so important to me,
Hmm.
that she wasn't just saying, oh, no, you're a kid. She said it, and kids
Yeah.
are very intuitive. I think they can feel when you're not authentic,
Oh my goodness.
right?
Completely.
Yeah.
Especially kids like my daughter who are
Hmm.
very intuitive, very sensitive to other people's, they're very empathic.
Yeah.
So if you walk around a certain way, they call you out on it.
Yeah.
Oh, what's going on with you today?
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, what is this coming from? Like, how do you
Yeah.
know this? There's
Yeah.
almost a higher level of being that some of these kids have,
Yeah.
that they tap into other people's feelings very quickly.
Yeah.
It keeps you on your toes, that's for sure.
Yeah. And I want to say, because you mentioned it, like being very empathic, like these days, it's also a lesson that's kind of, you can use my book to teach that lesson. These days, there's a lot of emphasis on empathy and kindness.
Mm,
Like you hear it constantly, right? As a parent, I think these days you almost
yeah.
have to include it in your goals, but I think it is very dangerous. Christina Lopes, she's a spiritual teacher. I heard her using the expression, a disempowered empath.
Hmm.
Because if you teach empaths, like say, you got to be nice, you got to extend your empathy, you got to extend your kindness, then people can take advantage of them.
Hmm.
And there are people in this world, we need to acknowledge that also, that will take advantage of empaths. And I think teach them empathy, sure, of course, right? But at the same time, teach them that they have the right to set boundaries. They have the right to protect, their frame, their space, their inner self, their energy. They have the right to say to people, it's okay, for example, like with a book, it's okay. Or your daughter could say to you, like if you were having a grumpy day, say to you, Dad, it's so, we all have done it, right?
Of course.
It's okay to have a grumpy day. I have empathy, but it is not okay to let it out on me. It is never okay.
Yeah.
That's the message I want. It's not okay. It's just,
I just had that conversation yesterday.
Oh, did she tell you off?
Yeah, it was like, it was like, I tell her that, she tells me that. It's like, it's weird watching someone else grow up in front of you and you're trying to like I'm dealing with my own stuff. I'm trying to, make myself as good as possible to be good for this other person. But then they call you out on your stuff. It's like you're 10, you're calling me out on stuff.
Yeah. But, set an example, like if you children learn through our actions, right?
Yes.
Our actions will always trump our words. Because if you're getting grumpy as a parent, say it. Say sorry, I'm really tired today. There's something on my mind. And model to them what they can do, right? Like you can talk about it, like tell them I'm going to talk to whatever, my wife or my partner about it. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to take a time out. Like model it to them how they can deal with their emotions, like instead of dumping it on other people. Deal with them,
Right. These are all like skills. And as I talked about this yesterday, my guest I had yesterday on was like having good quality conversations, learning conflict resolution. All these things are often not taught to you effectively. Exactly. They may be taught to you poorly.
Yes.
Maybe poorly, probably.
Yes.
But effective conflict resolution or talking about your feelings, I think we forget like the whole aspect of feelings and everybody talking about their feelings. It's a fairly recent thing for a lot of parents. If you look back in not that long ago, a lot of, especially males, did not talk about their feelings to their children. Everybody knows about the past of dads who don't tell their kids that they love them, but, oh, you should know. You should know. Like type, we're trying to move away as a society from that type of behavior to a more loving, feelings-based thing. So we don't have a lot of experience as a society with the whole feelings aspect of parenting.
It's true. And I think there's dynamics that we allow. I mean, there's emotions on an individual level. And I do feel like you're saying we're getting better at that, teaching kids how to express. But I also want to look at how we deal with emotions on an interpersonal level, right? Because I feel, especially with people that we are close to, we sometimes make them responsible for our emotions, right? It
Mm,
becomes this kind of mess where it's kind of intertwined. And somehow we accept this dynamic in society. You know what? Okay, the bully, okay, of course, the person that's being bullied is going to go out, be a bully themselves.
right.
No, that's not healthy, right? And I think teaching children very early on, your emotions are your responsibility. My emotions are my responsibility. You know, sure, I will help you, you know, like what you need from me. Do you need a hug? You
Yeah.
know, should we talk about it? But you need to deal with it. Like, don't dump them on me, right? And don't make me responsible. We know that never works, right? For example, making other people responsible for your happiness.
Yes.
No
Yes.
relationship can do that. You know, you are responsible for your emotions, and let's teach kids that very early on. And other people dumping their negative emotions on you should never, ever, ever be acceptable.
Yes. That goes back to the relational intelligence. I love that. I love that phrase for that. And
Yeah.
so, are there any other strategies for relational intelligence that you talk about in the book or that have worked pretty well for you? I mean, you have adult children.
Yeah.
Now, one day I'm going to have an adult child. Like, we're all like speeding towards this like adulthood. And
Mm,
like, I hope I didn't do anything crazy.
yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, listen, my lessons come from, unfortunately, telling parents I've made these mistakes. I mean,
Mm,
I cannot go back. You know, I cannot go back and protect
yeah.
my children. And trust me, as a parent, it's a very, very hard thing to forgive yourself for. You
Mm,
know, I think realistically, I will never totally forgive myself for it, that I wasn't there for my children and I wasn't able to protect them. So I'm out here from a standpoint of, listen, parents, I've made these mistakes. You know, don't make them, because it's very devastating for your
yeah.
children. And try to teach them early, you know, to stand up for themselves, to have a strong voice. And I think what you said, I think for girls, it's especially important to have a strong voice,
Mm,
because we are still
yes.
taught to be the nice ones, the kind ones. You
Hmm.
know, we're bitchy if we stand up for ourselves. And like you said, for boys, I think it's very important to let them know that they're expressing their emotions, being vulnerable, being crying is not weak.
No.
You know, it's the opposite. Like showing your emotions and crying in front of people is a very strong thing to do.
Actually, it's funny. My daughter gets on me about that too. Like I watch a movie and like I start sobbing like on like I like I'm very sentimental,
Yeah.
like very. So she looks right at me and she's like, "Dad, you crying again at this movie?" And I'm like, "I just can't help it."
Yeah. But don't you think it's amazing for her to see?
Yes.
You know, because
Yes.
when she has a relationship, she has a boyfriend, and he's upset. She's like, she's going to tell him, why don't you have a good cry, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I don't I was never like that was never a thing that was instilled upon me that was a bad thing,
Yeah.
you know.
And it's not.
It
It's
was
just crying. Like, what's
just
so scary
crying.
about it? You know,
I
let it
know.
out.
It's just
Yeah,
part of like the human package of emotions. I mean, it's like, why would
exactly.
you shut off something that was part of this portfolio of your emotions?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
and but unfortunately, like we still have, people are saying, oh, this is what it means to be this gender, or this is what it means to be this gender.
yeah,
Instead of it's like, let's teach good values of being a good human
yeah,
versus saying, hey, this is what it means to be a man or something,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. I think it's important. I think those things we have to, well, I kind of call it the rat race of parenting, right? Like, it starts very quickly as soon as they start kindergarten, right? The pressure is
Yeah.
on. Let's get things done. Let's show good marks, you know, and to not get caught in that rat race, and say, like you said, let's look at the other life skills too. Let's not forget about them.
Yeah, we can't forget it. I mean, I just think there's a huge emphasis, hopefully, growing on just the things you need to know how to be effective in this world.
Yeah.
And often, like, I think they're like things that are just not taught. Like when I was in high school, I took home economics, which for people, anybody who's listening who's very young, that's cooking,
Yeah.
basically.
What is
Okay.
that? Yeah.
You learn how to cook. And I learned
Yeah.
how to cook when I was 17. I like everything because that's what we did in those classes. I cooked Thanksgiving dinner. I was
Yeah.
cooking like I was cooking everything. They taught you that there's a kitchen in the school just for learning how to cook. And I use that all the time in my
Yeah.
life. You know,
Yeah.
like
Isn't that the one that you use like almost the
like
most,
every day almost.
Yeah.
Like, why don't we? But see, I feel like we're getting rid of those things in
Yeah.
schools.
Yeah.
Like, and then it's
Yeah.
like, okay, the parents, your job's to teach your child how to cook, or in this age we're in, just get Uber Eats or get DoorDash. Just let somebody bring it to you. It's like, okay, life can't get so easy that we do nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also think, I mean, you were saying teach them to be affected, but I also think, I mean, if I think back to when I was picking my job and my career, it was much more matter of factly, right? You just pick something, you make a decent living.
Yeah.
But I think we're shifting more and more to that kids want to have a purposeful life.
Yes.
You know, they're
Mm.
aiming, I think they're aiming a little higher than we did. And well, higher, I don't know if that's the right expression, but and I think we have to help them with that transition as well, right? Okay, what is a purposeful life, right?
Yeah.
Like we said, if you have the joy and the excitement and you find something that has purpose, aren't you going to have a happy life, you know?
Yeah, it's actually I had a lady on here who has a like a social audio speed dating app. So you can't see each other. It's all like just voices. It's called
Oh,
Blink. And it's
interesting.
coming out. It's not out yet, it's in beta mode, but it's very interesting in the sense that, you know, how people develop relationships now or
Yeah,
what they want out of relationships now versus what say the 1950s
yeah,
population wanted at that time. And I think in all aspects, people now are looking more for purpose, for relevance, for this kind of higher plane of
yeah,
existence
yeah,
for that. And
yeah.
which is interesting because then the parents of those children didn't think about that probably. So
No.
how do you connect those dots for your child of like that wasn't your thing?
I know it's a transition. I think it really is a transition, right? I mean, listen, don't get me started on dating. I had to go back to dating at the age of 55, right? It's like,
Okay, wait a minute. What's that like?
oh my, I know. That's a whole other discussion.
That's a whole nother show. I mean, it's like
Oh my goodness. No, it's not too bad, but it has some surprises, you know.
it's
Um,
definitely surprising, I'm sure.
let's call it that, right? So
Yeah. But what do
yeah,
people
I
want out
think
of things is different these days than maybe what they used to want. And what your kids
yeah,
may want out of a relationship
yeah,
may be different than what you did back in the day, you know?
yeah, yeah. And there's other aspects, like for example, a lot of my daughter doesn't want to have kids, right? She doesn't want to bring kids
Mm.
into this world. And I hear
Yeah.
that more and more. It's a sad
Yes.
fact. We
Yes.
didn't have to think about that,
Yeah.
you know, but this generation does think about that,
Yeah.
you know?
Oh, that's, I think, connected to a lot of things in life. But yeah, there's actually a lot of research on that less people, kind of millennial age group, or Gen Z, they don't want children.
Yeah.
A lot of women, but also I think there's other factors like, you know, when you take a certain population of people and they're no longer essentially forced to just be
Yeah.
childbearing population and they want other things, you're going to have a smaller pool of people. And
Yeah.
across the planet, there's a great book. I can't remember the name of it, but it talks about how more and more societies are having less children.
Yeah.
It's like used to be, I think, in the 1960s, like the average family size for children was like 3 to 5,
Yeah.
and now I think it's roughly close to 2 or 1.5 for
Yeah.
that. And women are leading that way. They don't want to have as, I mean, that's a whole other thing. But anyways, like it's
Yeah.
just different. Like your
Yes.
daughter doesn't want to have kids, right? And that's I've heard that a lot. So it's like,
Yeah.
how do you manage that as a parent, talking about it and not try to tell your kid, what are you doing? Why are
Yeah.
you thinking that? I mean, people are different. Everybody has different things they want in life, you know?
Yeah. That's we have to give our children that space. You know what?
Yeah.
It's their life, it's their decision, and listen to them, and you know, give them that space to be themselves and to stay on their path. You know.
Yeah. Do your kids ever talk to you about your past? Do you ever have these kind of deep conversations about, like you said, there's some things you regret? Do you have those conversations
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, all the time.
all
Yeah.
the time?
Well, not all the time. Like we're like we've in certain ways dealt with it. Listen, to tell you the truth, I was a person who didn't grow up with. I grew up in a household where we didn't talk a lot about emotions,
Yeah.
and I think I was a little bit emotionally. For the longest time, I thought I'm not an emotional person.
Mm.
Where in fact I'm a very emotional person, right? I just shut them down. But guiding my kids through their childhood, I had to be emotional, right? And I had to talk about that stuff. Oh yeah, we've talked about it all. I've apologized to them.
Really?
Oh yeah, of course. Oh yeah.
You don't realize that's not normal, right? I don't, that's parents, a lot of parents don't have the guts to do that because you
No,
think I'm the parent.
yeah.
I know what's right, and I shouldn't have to apologize to my children. Like, I know a lot of people who have done wrong by their adult children. They would never think of apologizing ever
Yeah,
to their
yeah.
children.
And I don't think that's a good space to be in,
I agree.
It's not a good space to be in because we're humans, who are we to dictate to our children? I mean, we do it of course, we kind of pass our beliefs on to them, but well, I think that comes from, like I said, from my mother. My mother was not the like I said, she would say, like, you're right, right? But at the same time, like, we always had to respect her, right? So
Yeah.
it doesn't mean your children won't respect you. Like, I would have never ever disrespected my mother, but I was allowed to joke around with her.
Yeah.
We had talks. Oh yeah, I've had those talks with my children. Like, and in a way I was forced to, right? Because I also
Mm.
had to validate their feelings, because otherwise they would have totally gone under, right? If I also had said, no, you can't feel that, like, this is not right. And I think children are amazing, and I'm so grateful that my children did that. Ugh, this makes me emotional again.
Yeah.
They will stand by you. They saw my weaknesses,
Mm.
but they also saw that I was trying. They saw that I was coming from an honest place. They just saw that I wasn't there yet. There's certain life skills that I hadn't acquired, but your children will be so forgiving with you, as long as you're like, be honest with them, like, be vulnerable. It's fine. You're not going to lose your power, right?
Whatever
Like,
that means, right?
yeah.
I mean, it's like,
And some children, listen, my daughter was, oh my God, she cannot be controlled. You know what? Everything had to make sense.
yes.
But that was fine with me, because isn't that a good attitude? Like, do you want to have a child that you say, okay, because I say so, just do it?
Yeah.
Is that the child you want to raise? Or you want to have a child like, my daughter and your daughter, that are going to say, you know what, Dad, I'm going to question you on this.
It's like all the time, though.
Yeah, exactly. And if you have a good explanation and you know what you're doing, they're going to say, oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Right. But if you're off somehow, they're going to catch you. Like, they're going to tell you,
It's challenging with a child like that, because it's like, sometimes you just want them to be like, okay, I'll do it. Because you're tired sometimes. You're like, listen, I'm tired. I don't want to deal with this right now.
Yeah, but like, you know what the trick is? I discovered the trick.
Okay, give me the trick.
The trick is, I had it sometimes with my daughter. Let's say she wasn't in her teenage years. She was wearing stuff that was, in my opinion, a little too revealing.
Yeah.
Don't make it a power struggle. Like, don't say, okay, this is not appropriate. Just say, listen, do it for me. I know you like to dress like this. It works. Like, don't make it a power struggle, right?
Do it for me.
Yeah, I would tell her, like, oh, listen, I don't feel quite comfortable going out with you. Can I just please ask you a favor, just for me? Like, it's not a societal issue. You're not, do it for me. And she would do it. She would like, sure, Mom, I'll do it for you.
Wow, that's a
I
nice.
know.
I mean, all the audience listening, if you have stories like that, I'd love to hear that. I mean, I hadn't heard of that one.
Yeah, don't make it a power struggle. Don't make it, turn it into a fundamental discussion of right or wrong. Just say, you know what? It's my opinion. I would feel better. Just do it for me.
Just do it for me. Come on, help me out.
Yeah, try it.
I'm gonna have to try that in the future. I'm sure we'll be crossing that bridge
Yeah, do it. I
as
just
we
say,
come into that. It's
yeah,
parenting's hard, and then
yeah,
it's hard enough with the daily grind of
yeah,
keeping this person on a path
yeah,
and moving forward, and then all of the stuff that happens along the way. I mean, I'm
yeah,
10 years in, but your children are adults now, and
yeah.
I'm curious, how do you see their relationships with other people based off of how, the things you've been talking to me? Like, how do they handle relationships now that they're adults, and they're doing all
Um,
this work?
they're affected. They're definitely affected. My daughter has borderline personality disorder. Um, my son is more on the like OCD kind of side of things. He's a little withdrawn, I would say. Um, you know what? It's kind of, they have their struggles, like mental health. But the way I see it is like somebody who broke their leg. They're always going to be extra careful or a little bit more careful with that leg, right? So my children will always have to be very concerned about their mental health. They will always have to be look out for themselves and look after that part, right? But people that have mental health issues can still have fulfilling and happy lives, right? They just have to make sure that they find that balance, right? And they have to do that inner work. It's hard, you know. My daughter said it was very hard at time, but I think it's better to face those issues, than
Yeah.
and try to find a balanced life. But that's why I wrote the book. Like in my children's case, it did affect them very
Yeah.
much.
As we have like lots of different people in here at this point, just kind of going back a little bit about the inner work. So let's go over some, maybe some quick strategies that people can do, for inner work, especially parents to children, that they can do to help their children grow internally, and then kind of help fill out the external things to have in their life.
Yeah, I would say buy the book.
All right, buy the book.
Buy the book, read it to your young kids, kindergarten age often. And maybe I can give your listeners some homework. I would say, find some time, like just 20 minutes, like make yourself like a nice cup of tea or coffee, pour yourself a stiff drink, whatever
Yeah,
you
yeah.
need, right? And sit down and think about, what are your beliefs
Hmm.
really? Like, what are your beliefs about what is happiness to you? What is a successful life to you?
Ooh.
Your beliefs about relationships. Do you think people can be trusted? Do you think they have to be heard? Your beliefs about, how the universe works, kind of like, do you feel life has to be tough? Life has to be struggle? Do you feel life can be joyful if we just follow our own paths, right? So I would tell people, sit down, take like 20 minutes and really think about it. Like what are your beliefs? What are the ones you want to teach your children? Or even for yourself, what are the ones you want to keep for yourself? What are the ones that you have acquired? I mean, it's called shadow work, right? What are the ones that you have acquired throughout your life that are not useful? um, Again, Dr. Shivali talks about that in her book. She says some CEO running a successful company, he wouldn't just say, oh, I want to run a successful company. He would have detailed plans, right? Like what is my goal? How am I going to get there? And I think with parenting, sometimes we say, I would have said that. Yeah, I want my kids to be happy.
Yeah.
But what does it mean
What does that
to
mean?
me? Yeah, and what do I have to teach them to be happy? And what's the kind of space and home I have to give them for them to be happy?
That is a fantastic exercise to do.
Yeah, I think
Probably
so.
one that most of the audience hasn't done, I would imagine.
Yeah,
These are yesterday I was giving out some exercises to do,
yeah,
actually, kind of similar to that. And it's staggering. Like I said, I wish there was kind of a raise your hand function on this, to
yeah.
like, hey guys,
Who's
like, have
done
you
it?
done this or not, type of thing. But like, I'd be love to know from the live audience. So it's getting close to 100 people at this point. It's like, hey, how many of you have done an exercise like that?
Yeah,
And I said yesterday, for the exercise that I was talking about, was like, I bet the percentage is like 1% or below of these things. Because how in a world, especially in today's world, you're inundated with screen time and all this stuff.
Yeah.
When do you sit down and write something like that out?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
where you say, what are my beliefs about this or that? What are my beliefs about parenting?
Yeah.
Right? Think about it. As
Yeah.
everybody who's a parent out there, whether you're an expecting parent, whether you are a parent, have you ever actually said that? Did you even think about that before you had a kid? Like, what are my beliefs about being a parent?
Yeah.
Probably not. Probably
Yeah.
didn't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's the end goal, right? What's
What
the
is
end
the end
goal?
goal?
Yeah, of my parenting, right? Because my goals now looking back would have changed. Like I said, they would have changed to trying to preserve their joy and their enthusiasm, right? And trying to keep them on their path instead of the external stuff.
Most definitely. So, Marita, I want you to talk a little bit about your book, where people can get it, the whole shebang, how people could contact you, social, all this stuff. It's amazing stuff and a great conversation. So people can go
Yeah.
out there and support you.
Yeah, the book is Little Rabbit and the Grumpy-Poos. It is available on Amazon. And my website is maritanizam.ca. You can pretty much find everything. On the website, I also have some videos that dive a little bit deeper into the lessons you can draw from the book. And I think the lessons are good, even sometimes for grown-ups, you know.
Definitely for grown-ups.
Frankly.
Are you kidding me? It's probably more for the grown-ups than it is the kids.
Yeah, sometimes.
You know, I mean, kids need to learn, but adults definitely need to learn about stuff. I mean, I know as a parent myself, there have been many times that I feel like I haven't been as good of a parent as I want to be.
Yeah.
And I know that. I definitely know that. And I'd like to admit that because there's so much power in admitting your flaws as a parent versus thinking you have to be super parent all the time, you know?
Yeah. And we can only teach what we know, you know. If you don't know how to love yourself, how to be a joyful person, it'll be hard. You can't teach your children that.
If you don't have joy, how do you teach joy to someone else?
I mean, they're going to look at you, right? There's like, okay, I see words coming out of your mouth, right? But your daily actions like are not supporting that. So yeah, definitely, I think having kids should encourage us to do our inner work, you know.
Most definitely. Well, Marita, this has been awesome. Been really
I enjoyed it very much.
Easy conversation about some hard stuff, actually.
Yeah.
You know, so thank you for being on. We'll definitely be in touch. I'm actually going to keep this thing rolling on the Wisdom app after with some questions and stuff. I know you're probably pretty busy. Whole deal, got things to do, but I'm gonna let you off the hook right now.
Okay.
I will be in touch, and I'll let you know when this comes out. Okay.
Thank you so much for having me.
You got it. Thanks.